Hi guys, welcome to Code Patcher, and in this video I will discuss many-to-many relationship in Eloquent Laravel. So in this type of relationship, both entity has many relationship with the other entity. Means, for example, like suppose you have a users and you have a roles. So one user can have multiple roles. Okay, so and one roles can be attached to the multiple users. Okay, it's a real world example. Suppose a user A can have a role of developer as well as team lead. Okay, and the role TL team lead can be assigned to the multiple users. Okay, so let's understand with the help of some practical implementation. So I have a users table. Okay, and in this table I have a ID, name, email, etc. field, the user related information. And the second table I have roles, and in this roles table I have ID and role name, dev, tl, pm. Okay, so to relate to implement this relationship, we need the third table. This table will be called role user. Okay, so we cannot have the user ID column in the roles table because if we have, then a user cannot have multiple roles. Okay, so to resolve this, we need the third table, role user. Okay, it is by convention that Laravel suppose things that Laravel organize the third table as in alphabetical order. Okay, so in this case, role underscore user. So if we see this table, it has user ID, role ID, and the third status field I have chosen. It it is an option field. Okay, I will discuss on this field later. So the first two column are related to the IDs of the linked table, users and roles. Okay, so you can see clearly the user ID with the user ID 4 has two rows. Okay, so user ID 4 have two roles. It means role 1 and role 2. Okay. And likewise, the role ID 1 has two users. It can have more than one, as I have told you. Okay. So to implement this in Laravel Eloquent, Laravel provides the method belongs to many. Okay, as I have already told you, every relationship in Eloquent Laravel is a method, and you can use as a property when querying these models. Okay, so let's define this many-to-many relationship. Okay, so in first in users, suppose you are fetching users and you want the associated roles also. Okay, so for this, public function roles, a user can have multiple roles. Okay, and Laravel Eloquent model provides these methods belongs to many. Okay, and we'll pass the role class in that. Okay, that's it. So now if we query, suppose let's query the user id 4. Okay, and the user id 4 is the Suraj. Okay, so user. Okay, now if we refresh, we get the user details. Okay, now to fetch the roles, we can simply use the relationship as a property like this. Okay, we are getting two rows, tab and TL. And now if we want to load the relation by default, then simply use with and give here the relationship name. So it will be loaded by default with the user detail. Okay. So as I have mentioned earlier that the third table name will be determined by the Laravel uh, to organize the tables or models in a alphabetical way. Okay, so in this case it's suppose role underscore user, but if you have different table name like suppose you have a table name user positions. Okay, and let's rename the role user table user positions and apply it. Okay, now if we query, okay, and if you refresh now it will not be returned to any result because we have changed the third table name. Okay, so to accommodate this change, the second parameter in this belongs to many function, you can give your the third table the intermediate table name user positions like this. Okay, and now if you refresh it will work. Okay, so you can customize the table name also. Okay, and now suppose you have different keys or different column name in this table. Okay, like we have a user id and role id, the Laravel by default suppose that the model singular name underscore id will be a column name. Okay, and but by chance if you have a different column name, then you can also accommodate this. Let's change the user id with the uid. Okay, here you can see uh, uh, it is changed to uid, and now if you refresh it will throw an error. And now if we want to accommodate, then the third parameter will be a will can be accommodate this like this. Okay, so the third parameter will be the key, the foreign key of the current model. Okay, mind this line because we will implement the same relationship in role.php also later. Okay, we are implementing this relationship in user.php. So and it is related to the UID field or the user ID field in this table user positions. Okay, so the third parameter will be related to this model. Okay, so if we now refresh, it will be work. Okay, and the fourth parameter will be the foreign key of the second table. Okay, so now if we have a RID instead of role ID, apply. Okay, and now if you refresh, it will not be work, and it also giving the syntax error, but it will not work because we have changed the role ID to RID, and to accommodate this change we need to mention here like this. Okay, so you can customize the intermediate table name and the keys also using this, and just keep in mind that the third parameter will be the foreign key of this table, this model. Okay, and the second key and the fourth one key is the foreign key of the second table in the in the intermediate table. Okay, so if we want to implement the same relationship, okay, in the roles model, so just reverse it down a little bit. Okay, in roles table we want the users relation, and we need to pass the user class here. Okay, and just switch these keys because we are in a role model. The third parameter will be a role ID or RID, whatever you have given in the intermediate table, and the fourth one will be the user ID as we have changed it to the UID. And now, if we try to get the role, okay, and let's suppose we are trying to find the role 1 because it has multiple users, so we can see here it is the role 1, the RID 1 related to the user 4 and 6. Okay, so let's find out 1 and return role here. Okay, and now if you refresh, role not found. Okay, so we need to include it here like this. Now refresh, we are getting this role but not users. So for the users we can use the relationship as a property key, or we can use the with to load it by default. Okay, so okay, so one thing you can notice that there is a pivot property, okay, coming. Okay, but in the private property by default it returns only the keys RID and UIDs, but we have a third column status and we want to include it also. Okay, so for this if you have extra column uh, besides the keys, so you need to mention in the relationship with the with pivot. And in this with pivot function, you need to mention what field you want to include in query result. I want to include status, so I mention status. And now if I refresh it, returns with the status. Okay. So with pivot, you can include the extra field. Okay. So using these steps and instructions, you can implement the many-to-many relationship, and it can be very useful in your development, and keep and help you to keep your code dry. Okay, thank you. And if you have any question, then you can comment it out in the comment box, and let me know. Okay, thank you for watching us. Thank you.